Caller, please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Okay, my question today is basically when I go to my pastor and I tell him, hey, Jesus could not have been a sacrifice because he wasn't sacrificed just like in Leviticus. He didn't do anything that was needed to be a sacrifice.
Right.
And then his comeback is literally, oh, but he was a special sacrifice.
I've heard that too.
How do I respond to that?
In what way was Jesus a special sacrifice? I want to ignore these technicalities that his blood wasn't spilt on the altar, because Christians are not impressed with that, because it seems picky.
So I think he already answered that. He was saying he's special because he's painted as the Son of God, born of a virgin. That's how he's special.
Because he's divine, because he's
right,
God.
Because he's divine, right. There you go.
Yes,
okay.
Because he's God.
Okay, yes. Thank you. So what
we got it.
To do is every listener
I was like, okay.
That's good. Okay, cool. All right, so do you want me to go
Stay with me.
Oh, keep him on the phone? Rabbi, you want me to keep him on the phone?
No, that's all right.
Okay, brother, go ahead and hang up,
Anyways,
and we'll free up the phone lines, okay?
All right, perfect.
Thanks,
you
man.
Much.
Bye.
Now, what I'm going to do here is I just want to ignore for a moment, because I want to just focus on this. There is human sacrifice is not only not found in the Jewish scriptures, it is found in the Jewish scriptures, it's forbidden. Tanakh warns us over and over that no one could die for anybody's sins. The soul that sins, it will die, unless, of course, God says, if the sinful person, Ezekiel 18, verse 21, 22, 23, will turn away from his sinful ways, he will surely live, he will not die. Is it my desire at all that the wicked should die? Is it not rather they should turn away from the sin? So I want to get away, I just want to focus like a laser beam on the aspect of this. So human sacrifice is not possible. I heard people say to Christians, Jewish people say to Christians, well, Jesus couldn't be a sacrifice because after all, the blood had to be spilt on the altar, and Jesus wasn't sacrificing that way. He was crucified, so there's no blood on any altar. But that's I don't advise people to say it to Christians. Christians will go, well, that seems a little picayune, and they think back at Mel Gibson's fabulous theological snuff film, and they go, oh, but look at. So I want to just ignore all that. And it's hard to, because human sacrifice is forbidden. Vicarious atonement, someone dying for someone else's sin, is outrageous and cannot happen. But I want to just zoom in, ignoring everything else for a moment, and ask the question, what exactly was special? Because I have a reason for this. So the answer has to be that Jesus was God, and therefore only his death could provide an eternal atonement for the world. Only if he's God, this can work. Okay, and that's so I want to do is I just want to ignore everything else and just zoom in on that. That after all, because Jesus was God, and when Christians use the term Son of God, they mean it in the Greek sense. That means he was divine, not Son of God in a Tanakh sense, right, that someone is performing the work of Hashem on earth, like King Solomon, who's called the Son of God. Banu atem Hashem Elokechem, Deuteronomy 14. You are children. Doesn't mean it that way. They mean in a Greek sense. That Son of God means Son of God. Octavius was Son of God. So the point is that I want to just hone in on that point, and I'm ignoring everything else. It should be taken into account that the prophets screamed against this kind of concept. I really, really don't like it when people who oppose Christianity get into these things. Well, he wasn't brought on the altar. It may be all true, but it becomes so ridiculous, And to Christians, I generally know how Christians feel. Not that I'm a mind reader, but to them, it seems picayune. Well, he was on a cross. He wasn't. Oh, well, get the big picture. You got this thorn in your eye. Believe me, it's not a good idea. Christians are not enamored with such an approach. I would not approach it that way. But one thing that is important is that the part of Jesus that Christians say is unique, and therefore his death was efficacious to redeem the world, in that Jesus was God, Christians believe didn't die. That means Christians do not believe that God died on the cross. That means you should ask the Christian, Jesus was special in that he was divine. Did God die? I mean, God was dead. I mean, there's no God in the world from Friday until Easter morning. God was dead. Well, God didn't die. It was the human aspect of Jesus that died. Well, it was the human aspect of Jesus. Then it's not the divine part of Jesus. It was the human aspect of Jesus. I know this sounds very cold, but it is. That means they can't argue that there was no God, that God dropped dead. Because if God died, who resurrected Jesus? According to the New Testament, God resurrected Jesus. Well, how did he do it? He was dead. The answer is that Jesus wasn't God. Well, the God part of Jesus didn't die, the human part died. Now, aside from this, it's all patently ridiculous. I mean, what is the big sacrifice that something died? The idea is that any kind of sacrifice, whether we mean it literal as an offering or in the sense of passion, and I mean that in the sense of the Christian Bible, the passion, the suffering, what's the big deal to be dead on Friday afternoon and you're in paradise Friday night? That means you are partying the whole weekend. I'm sorry if that sounds like a sophomoric statement. It isn't. Because in Luke, Jesus, the two others that were crucified along with Jesus, unlike in Matthew, where Matthew says both of them didn't believe in Jesus, according to Luke, one of them did. And he asks Jesus, he scolds the other and says, we're crucified we're guilty. I'm paraphrasing, but what did he do? And he asked him that I should be there. And Jesus says, surely you will be with me today in paradise. So he spent the weekend in a spiritual Cancun. Okay. And then when he resurrects, he lives forever. So I'm not sure what kind of a sacrifice it is. I sure would if any normal person was offered the opportunity, all you have to do is go through a gruesome death on Friday afternoon. But if you do it, here's the deal. You spend the entire weekend on the ultimate Royal Caribbean cruise ship, and you get the penthouse. And not only that, you get to resurrect, not just resuscitate, new body, totally. And then you live forever. You live forever. You'll never get cancer. You will never have a heart attack. You will never have to check your chest if there's a lump somewhere. You're never going to have to worry about coughing up blood. You just will never die, and you'll always look great. It's not like you die and you look like a prune when you're 200 years old. You look fantastic. So where's the sacrifice? Moreover, the problem is always the cover-up. I mean, once you change one element, it's sort of theological systems theory, where if you change one thing, everything changes. If you're saying that Jesus was divine, and therefore his sacrifice could cover the world, atone for the world, and that's why it's unique, but you're saying that God didn't die. It was the human nature of Jesus that died, because Christians hold that Jesus wasn't 50% human and 50% God. They don't believe that. They insist that Jesus is 100% human and 100% divine. I'm not going to go, there's really a complicated issue that Christians consider very complicated, as it should be, because it's completely made up. But the point is, just for right now, take my word for it, Christians insist that Jesus was not half human and half divine. They insist that Jesus was 100% human and 100% divine. Moreover, if a Christian's knowledgeable and you ask them, was Jesus' elbow God? Jesus had a bladder, didn't he? He had an armpit, he had shoulders, he had nostrils. Was his elbow God? Was his toe God? Was his liver God? Was his spleen worthy of worship? Can I bow down to his kidneys? The answer is no. And a Christian will say that it has to be a scholar, because they're the only ones who actually you have to be a scholar even to be able to explain this. No one know what you're talking about, but at least to be able to use all these fancy person terms and all these these terms that have no conventional meaning, and they have to use this kind of professional theological language. Why? Why are they using words like person and so on? No one talks this way. It's because they have to invent words that have no meaning in the real world. But here's the point. Christians insist, those who are Orthodox Christians, lowercase o, insist that Jesus was 100% human and 100% divine. He was both at the same time. Okay? Well, it's not 50-50. And it's not therefore that 50% of Jesus died on the cross, the other 50 stayed alive. No way. What Christians insist is that on the cross, Jesus, the human part of Jesus, died, but the divine part of Jesus stayed on. Who was running the show, the planets, the heavens and the earth? God, the Father, was very much alive. Who they say was one with Jesus, who was divine and inseparable. And therefore, this is all patent. I know I'm going to get in trouble with the Christians. This is all complete stupidity, because they can't claim that God died. So the God part didn't die. It's the human part that died. So what's special? Now, in truth, I can't even come up. Maybe I'm just not good at this. I'm really not. And I appreciate the nice thing you said, although no one ever asked me what will happen when you pass away. No one ever started off a question that way. But maybe I'm just not good with coming up with things. It's so nonsensical, it's so obtuse that it's hard. But the point is that Christians don't believe God died. So what died? His elbows died, his flesh died. His flesh wasn't God. Christians don't believe you can worship Jesus's bladder. They don't believe it. Christians, if you really press the Christian who's knowledgeable, not some quacky guy who's jumping all over the stage in Houston. I'm talking about the more they will say that if you actually worship the physical body of Jesus itself, that's idolatry. I'm not kidding. So therefore, what died? Besides the fact that what was the sacrifice? I mean, the real sacrifice is the Jews who were told by the Crusaders, accept the cross or accept the sword. And Jews willingly died rather than convert to Christianity, with no hope of spending just a weekend in paradise and resurrecting from the dead on Sunday. None at all. They, of course, knew that one day HaKadosh Baruch Hu would resurrect their body when Mashiach comes. But those are the people who really are sacrificing everything. This concept of God dying, Christians really don't believe it's the God that died. Right. They believe it's the human aspect of Jesus that died, right, and that God brought him back, which it says Paul openly states. So there's the answer. But I confess to you that I am ignoring all the other issues. That human sacrifice is forbidden, right, is complete heresy. I'm ignoring all the other things. I'm also recommending you don't get involved in, well, it wasn't blood on the altar, it wasn't done by a priest, it was done by don't do that. It's true, but I think it doesn't go over well.
They don't care about those points.
They don't care. They just don't care about that.
Right.
And it sounds to them, I'm just telling you, I was not hired as a spokesman for Christianity. I should have been, but I wasn't. But I could tell you now that don't ever say that to a Christian, right, because to them it seems picayune. It seems, that's so typical hair-splitting Talmudic logic, rather than, can't you get the picture? Why do you have this thorn in your eye? You can't see the forest. Just stay away from that kind of stuff. But it's all nonsense, because right, nothing makes sense. What was the sacrifice if you're dying on Friday and resurrecting on Sunday and live forever and spend the weekend in paradise?
Thank you. That's what